Have you ever considered drawing your pension through the two-part system? Perhaps you've considered using it to get yourself a home. Maybe you're justifying it by saying, it's not like I'm going on a cruise, I'm not buying a car. I'm in essence using the money as an investment because I'm purchasing an asset which is increasing over time. But is this move really worth it? Is drawing from your pension worth expediting your home purchasing journey? That's what we're going to look at this week. We are going to compare the risk of drawing from your funds in comparison to the benefit of owning a home. I'm Sibilala Makonyane, aka Sibilala the Estate Agent, and welcome to the channel where we give sound advice when it comes to first-time home buyers and first-time home owners. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, and click the notification bell so that you can always know when there's a new video loaded. I read a very interesting article that said of the people who were allowed to draw from the two-part system in 2024, 45% of those people actually took their money out. And of that 45%, 70% of them went back the following year to draw once again. I found these stats really interesting in order to see how many people are actually drawing from the funds. I think it's just a sign to show how much we as South Africans are under financial pressure, or maybe we're just not good at managing our money, but probably most likely it's both. Research shows the majority of the money that was drawn from the two-part system was actually used to pay off debt. But these are not the type of people that we're talking about today. We are talking about somebody who's going to use the funds in order to pay for transfer costs so they can get access to a home, which is seen as an asset, as opposed to paying off debt, which next year this time we're back in debt again. In order for us to move forward, we need to get a clear understanding of how the two-part system works. It basically takes your pension contribution and splits it into three. 2/3 of the amount goes towards your pension, as it always has. But since 2024, 1/3 goes towards a savings pocket. So say your pension contribution every month is 900 Rand. 600 Rand is going towards your pension. And then 300 of that amount is going to go into a savings pot or a savings component, which you are allowed to draw. The amount that you're allowed to draw on an annual basis will depend on your income. So starting with a minimum of 2,000 Rand and a maximum of 30,000. So for the purposes of this video and this example, we're going to talk about 30,000 Rand and assume that you're taking the full amount that you're allowed access to. When it comes to withdrawing from a pension reserve, we'll start at the most challenging issue, and that is tax. When you draw a certain amount, you're not going to get all of that directly back into your bank account. The South African Revenue Services is first going to calculate how much tax you need to pay on that amount, and that will depend on in what income bracket you fall into. So if you withdraw 30,000, that amount is going to be added on as part of your annual income. So if you're not careful and you go and withdraw an amount, it might put you into the next annual income bracket, which means that you're going to pay more tax for the entire financial year. Anyone paying less than 237,000 Rand a year pays 18% pay-as-you-earn tax. Now, once you start earning 238 and above, you now fall into the 26% bracket. Once you earn 371,000, that rate then increases to 31% and so on and so on. So say you've got somebody who earns 350,000 Rand per annum. That means they're paying income tax at 26%. Then they go and they withdraw from the two-part system, they're 30,000. So now the annual income moves from 350 to 380,000. So this person now falls into the next income bracket, because remember we say somebody who earns between 238,000 Rand and 371,000 Rand, they're going to pay 26% tax. But someone who earns between 372,000 and 528 is going to pay 31% tax. So disclaimer, This whole two-part system works slightly more complicated than I'm making it seem. And that is because I just need you to understand what you need to know for the comparison that we're doing today with regards to taking out your pension fund to pay for your home loan, right? Those are two that we're comparing. I'm not here to try and educate you about the two-part system. I just need you to know what I need you to know so that we are able to do a fair comparison of the two. If you have been considering drawing from your two-part, it's very important to calculate how much you're actually going to receive so that you will know the long-term financial impact of the withdrawal, as well as being able to budget because you know how much is going to come into your account. If you're appreciating this content, go ahead and smash the like button, and a subscription would really mean a lot to me. And go ahead and click the notification bell so that you can be notified every time a new video is loaded. In the first 2 years that we were allowed to draw from the two-part system, South Africans drew a total of 57 billion rand. Of that 57, 15 billion went towards tax. Like, that's almost 26%. So that's basically 7,800 rand for every 30,000 drawn. That is money that just gone in jail. So the question is, are you willing to just give the taxman 7,800 rand every time you draw? Because basically that's what you're doing. I understand the dilemma though, because you are drawing the money in order to buy an asset. It's going to increase over time. So I get the dilemma. I get it. The challenge is basically asking yourself, will I get more returns if the money remains in the two-part system, or if I withdraw it to invest in this increasing asset called a home? Now, I'm one of those people who really like to deal with numbers, right? But it's very difficult to predict how much your pension is going to be worth in the future. So in other words, you cannot be certain how much you're going to get after 20 or 30 years. But generally, it's considered that the market increases by between 7 and 14% every year. So what we'll do is we'll use for this example 10%, which is the generally accepted average. So now we need to compare the growth that's going to happen in that pension fund compared to the growth that's going to happen on the property that you buy. Again, very difficult to predict because the increase of value in your property is going to be very dependent on where you buy, what you buy, when you buy, and how you buy. Someone who bought in one of the bougie suburbs in Cape Town will have seen an increase of 130% between 2019 and around 2025, right? Now, if you bought in a different suburb within Cape Town as well, you would have still seen growth, but it would be substantially less. Now, Joburg, on the other hand, has only seen an increase of 3% over the same period. Now, obviously, there's a lot of towns and cities in between that have gotten increases which are far less extreme. So like I'm saying, it is difficult to predict how much a property will grow by. But taking into account the fact that we are doing a direct comparison between pension and the property, so let's assume that the property also increases by 10% per annum. But let's start with the pension. Say you are 40 and you're going to retire at 65. So in other words, you've got 25 years of working. You are contributing towards your pension fund at, let's say, 2,700 Rand a month. At a growth of 10% over that 25 period, your money will have grown to 3.18 million Rand. Should you withdraw from your pension reserve, your money will then decrease by 325,000, meaning it'll move from 3.1 million to 2.8. So in essence, your withdrawal of 30,000 has cost you 325,000 over the years. Now, let's use the same example on somebody who's 25. So they're also going to retire at 65, meaning they've got 40 years of work ahead of them. Their withdrawal of 30,000 at age 25 is going to cost them 1.3 million over that term. So now we're moving from 14.3 million to 13 million Rand. So basically, your withdrawal of 30,000 Rand is now costing you 1.3 million. So now let's be fair and compare it with the increase or decrease on your property. So because both of them are increasing at an annual interest of 10%, ideally you would assume that the growth on your property would ideally be exactly the same. However, you drew 30,000 from your retirement pot, right? And you only got 22,200 Rand. Remember, we said that 7,800 goes towards a tax man. So you don't get that full 30,000 Rand. So even though your pension decreased by 30,000 Rand, the amount that you could contribute towards your home was in fact only 22,200. So before I even do the calculations, I'm sure you can see, this is a little bit dodgy. So I'm not even going to do the calculations because you can see that already, you know what I mean? It's a little skewed towards one side. Now we need to put this into context by saying that I'm a very big advocate for home ownership. However, buying a home needs to make sense. Now, in your confusion of drawing this money and deciding, do we take it, do we not take it, you might have missed the fact that the money is going towards transfer costs. And transfer costs are in no way considered an improvement on your property. I always think of initiation costs almost kind of like lost money, a bit like tax, right? You have to pay it, but you don't necessarily get anything back that you can see. You know what I mean? You can't say, I took my money and I spent it on X. And not to say that the transfer attorneys don't work. Don't get me wrong. They're very important in the process in the sense that they register the bond, they register the property, they do the transferring of the property. But at the same time, you don't get anything tangible to show what you've done with the money. So in essence, the money that you drew from your pension, you've got nothing to show for it. It's gone. And that's not even all. Now for the deal breaker. Owning a house is something that all of us, or at least most of us, desire to have. At some point, we'd like to find ourselves as homeowners. But owning a home it's a luxury, right? As opposed to retirement, which is inevitable. You can live your entire life without ever owning a home. But you cannot escape the reality that at some point, you are going to reach a stage where you are either not able or not willing to continue working. So it makes more sense to choose the reality of retirement rather than the fantasy of owning your own home. It makes more sense to leave your pension money as it is and rather save up for transfer costs completely separately, even if it does mean that it's going to delay your home ownership journey by a year to even 3 years. That way you'll be able to enjoy retirement as well as home ownership. Remember that once you draw from your retirement fund, the reality of compounding says that you will never be able to ever get that money back. When you do get that property, no matter how long it takes to get there, you will need to have certain hacks that will help you in order to be able to pay off that bond as soon as possible. In this case, I'm going to show you how to save up to 80,000 Rand on your bond. Check out this video.